Hello, leaders, scholars, and virtuous change agents. My name is Dr. Lisa Marie Portugal, the Leadership Architect, and today I have a talk for you called A Culture of Excellence, Virtuous Leadership Principles for Organizational Success, a Management System. And that is actually the title of one of my leadership books. And the graphic that I have for you on the first slide, it is the 4 cardinal virtues representing prudence, justice, fortitude, and temperance. Okay, so introduction. I first want to tell you to live virtuously. So let's take a look. Throughout all of my travels and education, sometimes you have to do things that are a little different, and this was a little different. We were asked to do a logo that represents ourselves, right? So I decided to do a logo that represents my personal and professional leadership brand, and I stated that way, leadership brand. So as we go throughout this talk and any other talks that I do in the future, think about the leadership brand that you want to represent yourself. So when people, research you on the internet, if you have a website, or if they know who you are and they think about you, what is the leadership brand that you want to exemplify in your personal and professional leadership style, right? So this is mine. Manifest Leadership Academy, because I do a lot of teaching in leadership courses. I write a lot about leadership, and I publish in peer review as well as, books. So let's take a look. We cannot achieve greatness or magnanimity unless and until we master the virtues within ourselves. Reaching greatness or magnanimity is about virtue building within ourselves, our families, communities, and others. We cannot achieve magnanimity until fortitude, self-control, counsel, justice, prudence, understanding, respect for others, temperance, humility, charity, piety, and courage are present first within us. We cannot give to others what we do not possess ourselves. So understanding how to master ourselves and build virtue is the first, ongoing, and last step required for magnanimity. I love that word. Magnanimity meaning greatness, and that is a virtue. And mastering the virtues is a lifelong and ongoing process throughout our entire lives. When we fall, pick yourself up and start the practice of virtue building again, and do this throughout your life. Magnanimity is an ongoing process and a focus we should have throughout our lives. It is also a focus we should have for working with, mentoring, and coaching others to greatness. We can build virtue within ourselves and help others in our sphere of influence to achieve greatness in their own lives by teaching the virtues and living the virtues in everything we do. Live virtuously. So that is my logo and my leadership brand. Okay, so now let's take a look at the table of contents. Today, I'll introduce myself to you. We'll talk about virtuous leadership is about character development, leadership in practice as a management system, personal and professional character, virtuous leadership as an educational model, and then some mistakes that people tend to make in leadership. Okay, so about me, I'm Dr. Lisa Marie Portugal, the Leadership Architect. There are my degrees, as you can see. I've written about 18 books. I've peer-reviewed papers, about 35 plus. I stopped counting. I've got to go back and count. And my peer-reviewed papers are in educational, medical, and business journals. As I said, I write a lot about leadership, and I teach leadership. I've been teaching in K-12 and higher education since 2004. I have experience teaching doctoral, graduates, and undergraduates, as well as K-12. I've taught for 15 different universities. I have supervisory experience as a dissertation chair and a faculty supervisor mentor to student-teacher candidates. I've taught 6th through 12th grades online and ground campus, and I also have experience as a K-12 librarian. And here you can see what my expertise and research interests include. I put virtuous leadership at the top. There are many leadership theories and styles that you can learn about and grow from, right? And I've learned about a lot. I teach all of them pretty much. And when I found leadership, virtuous leadership, that was the one that really caught my attention. Before that, I liked transformational leadership, and I still do. Participatory leadership, servant leadership. You know, there are so many different that are great. Situational. And it's good to know all of the leadership theories and styles so that you can kind of interchange them as needed depending upon who you're working with, who you're in front of, and you know what skills and abilities you need to raise in other people, right? Okay, so also my interests and research interests are and expertise are in leadership best practices, managing in higher education and K-12, student engagement and success, student retention, adult learning theory, clinical supervision and coaching teachers, adult non-traditional and at-risk learners, faculty retention, hiring practices, faculty burnout. That actually was my first dissertation for the leadership in higher education was on faculty burnout. Best practices in online learning, emerging technology in course design and instruction, online education, learning styles, I also love, diversity leadership, the community of inquiry framework, health and wellness, cancer, diabetes, naturopathic medicine, traditional Chinese medicine, functional medicine, and holistic healthcare. So I research and write and publish in all of those areas. And in fact, my second dissertation for the EDD in public health education was about leadership and people who are in holistic healthcare and interviewing them about their leadership style and how they teach others about the practices in holistic medicine that they use. Okay, so let's continue. Virtuous leadership is about character development. It is an approach and system of leadership based upon the foundational notion that leaders can be trained rather than born. And that's a good thing to know because that's what we're doing here for you today. You can be trained to be a great leader, to have magnanimity in your leadership style. In addition, authentic leadership is not merely about teaching, or it's not merely about technique and style, but rather a fundamental action of character. When an individual leads others without a clear sense of virtue in action, disposition, consistent practice, standards, policies, and expectations for others, then that person is merely managing or directing and not leading. In order to lead sustainably and effectively, strengths of character are required in the traditional virtues. The notion of virtuous leadership is about accomplishing greatness by developing the greatness in those we lead. I love that statement, right? So if we want to be great leaders, we should be developing the greatness in other people as well so they can be great leaders. So let's continue on. Developing the greatness of others within our sphere of influence should be a key characteristic of our own personal and professional leadership style. This lecture or talk today promotes, fosters, and promulgates a culture of excellence based upon the cardinal virtues that can be an overall initiative and agenda led by an organization's desire or an individual, such as yours, to raise standards in every area of life, society, organization, our nation, and globally. Virtuous leadership is the answer and model for lasting success. At least that's my personal and professional opinion. Okay, so let's get to our next slide. I have a quote here from Aristotle, and I love this. We are what we repeatedly do. Excellence, then, is not an act, but a habit. Isn't that beautiful? Be the leader you always wanted to be. So let's talk about virtuous leadership. When someone impresses me, that individual is a standout and emulates the virtuous characteristics that I believe are necessary for great leaders. I have very high standards myself and expectations for leaders which involve the virtues and traditional Christian philosophy, morality, and ethics. The characteristics I expect to see in great leaders encompass the virtues of magnanimity, self-control, courage, humility, piety, wisdom, understanding, temperance, respect for others, charity, prudence, justice, counsel, and fortitude. And I put right underneath magnanimity, right? I started with that one, meaning greatness. I put self-control next because, obviously we have to have self-control and self-discipline to achieve the greatness that we want to achieve, right? For ourselves and for our families, our communities, and for our society and culture. The virtue of magnanimity is about valuing the innate dignity of self and others and having the ability to strive for greatness. The power of humility is about honoring and understanding reality. For example, knowing one's limitations as well as the call to utilize one's strengths in the service of others. And when I first started learning about virtuous leadership from a Christian perspective, I found out, this was some time ago, but I found out that no other virtue can be obtained in the self until the virtue of humility is present first. Isn't that interesting? So keep that in mind. There's a lot of meat and potatoes in that statement. Just ruminate on that. Let it resonate with you. No other virtue can be obtained until the virtue and the power of humility is present first. So now let's talk about leadership in practice, a management system. These characteristics are my personal and professional standards, and this is how I measure leadership in others as well as people who are in leading and managing roles. I know excellent leaders who emulate these qualities and standards. These leaders embody the virtuous leadership model in their personal and professional practice. Virtuous leadership is about character development. It is an approach and system of leadership. True leadership is not about self-promotion, self-aggrandizement, self-profit, status, position, title, or even self-honor. Merely being good is not good enough. Virtuous leaders must embody and practice the traditional virtues by cultivating specific personal habits of humility, such as initiating greatness in service to others, authoring right decisions at appropriate times, justice, communication, self-control, focus, perseverance, and the habit of daring. Traditional virtues are not merely abstract principles. So let's read this graphic that I have here for you. Virtuous leadership, and it's a quote from Alexander Havard, who coined the virtuous leadership theory and the concept. The more deeply we live the virtues, the more likely it is that we will change the culture. Isn't that beautiful? So that's why I'm very focused on virtuous leadership as my personal and professional brand, because the more deeply I can live the virtues in my own life and practice it in every action that I take with others, whether it's in my personal life, at church groups, in my neighborhoods, with my family, with my friends, or in a professional setting like we are doing here today. I'm teaching you about virtuous leadership principles. The more that we can live those virtues and practice those virtues, the more likely it is that we can change the culture, right? And don't we need a nice change, a beautiful change in our culture these days? Okay, so be the personal and professional representation of right actions, right decisions, right virtues, and right philosophy. Our society gravely needs intelligent, strong, courageous, ethical, virtuous leaders with compelling strength in personal and professional character. That's you. Leaders with these characteristics are most capable of leading others to greatness because they understand, value, and practice the traditional virtues required for greatness. Individuals who lack these virtues in practice and philosophy have a limited capacity for greatness and a limited ability in leading and developing greatness in people, societies, and cultures. Individuals cannot share and teach others what they do not have and practice within the self. Great leaders embody a virtuous leadership model and have the ability to exemplify their actions to the world through their personal and professional representation of right actions, right decisions, right virtues, and right philosophy. Human flourishing is possible when leaders are called to transform business, culture, and life through a virtuous leadership educational model. Leadership is a process, not a position. That's important to know. It is an act of willfully choosing to build virtue in the self for the purpose of desiring to achieve greatness in self, others, and society. True leadership is not about a title, but rather about the act of service to the other. It is my belief that no other leadership theory, style, technique, or strategy can be effective until and unless a virtuous leadership model is present first. Mistakes in leadership. New managers and supervisors can fall into dangerous territory in a challenging new role when the proper coaching, guidance, and training is not provided. There are various common mistakes that new managers can make, such as the following. Failure to adhere to the coach's credo, meaning when things work out well, it is because of the team. When things fail, it is because the manager failed. When managers live up to this credo, their credibility with teams and staffers, peers, and others that they manage or work with can soar. Other common mistakes that new managers can make may include the following themes: forgetting to protect the people they manage, not allowing or being afraid to let others see they are human, avoidance dealing with problem staffers or problem people, forgetting to involve their supervisor in their work, not taking the time necessary to get to know their new team members, having a fear of making any changes. So you have to have some daring in you, right? You've got to be somewhat of a risk taker as well. I like to say strategy and calculated risk, right? I educate myself before I make those jumps. Changing everything too fast and without stakeholder buy-in. That's important. You always want to get stakeholder buy-in so that you don't sabotage yourself, right? People are going to want to follow people who help them succeed, who build leadership capacity and skills in them. Then they're going to want to follow you, right? Having a bully, authoritative, pushy, top-down, I am in charge attitude. That doesn't work, right? And we know if we're around people like that, that doesn't make us feel good, and we're not going to give them buy-in for whatever they're trying to do, right? So keep some of these principles in mind, even if you're not in a leadership or managing role at this time. Think about how you can apply any of these ideas to the people that are in your sphere of influence in any capacity. And then finally, feeling pressured to prove they know it all. And that's another one. I don't feel that pressure. If I don't know something, I'm honest. I let people know, hey, you know what? I don't know about that question that you just asked me, but let me go and research it or ask the people who do know, and I'll get back to you. So you never have to feel pressure in that area. Just have a response like that and then go find out, right? Go ask the right people or do the research. Okay, so in conclusion, people want to, well, let's see. I wrote this specifically as a header. Improve lives through skill development. People want to change and be better when they feel respected, valued, and heard. I chose those three words very specifically because don't we all want to be respected, valued, and heard? Having the ability to show followers how skill development can improve their lives is key to successful followership. There's also a lot of meat and potatoes in that sentence as well, right? If whoever you're working with in any capacity, if you're helping them understand that you want them to grow into their magnanimity, and you want to develop their skills in any skills that they may have, but in managing and leading others and becoming greatness themselves. How do we do that? We want to develop those people, and that again is key, because that's how you're going to get followership and buy-in. Leadership curriculum and books offer many ideas for leadership development. Having the ability to be a lifelong learner is essential to personal and professional growth as a leader. And finally, personal responsibility and having the ability to model and teach leadership skills to others is the mark of a true leader. Virtuous leadership is about character development, and modeling and teaching the virtues can make a better you, a better me, a better culture, and a better world. We can even teach personal responsibility to others, because, we can see in our society a lot of times that not everyone has personal responsibility. So you, being a virtuous leader yourself, you can teach what personal responsibility looks like, what it is, by modeling and teaching to others. Think about how you can make a better world through virtuous leadership skill development in yourself and in others. Exemplify magnanimous principles and be magnanimous yourself. Thank you so much for attending this lecture today, or this little talk that I have for you. I hope to do many more for you in the future. And it was my honor and my pleasure to meet you and to present some of these virtuous leadership principles and tenets for you today. Thank you so much.